The Philadelphia 76ers are now 3 games into the 2024-2025 season, and Tyrese Maxey has officially arrived. The man crowned the franchise has put the league on notice, breaking a number of records internally in the Sixers organization with his strong start to the season. I'm going to break down exactly what's going right and wrong for the young rising star that we've seen so far this season and what particularly is jumping out to me. I want to start off with his 45-point performance against the Indiana Pacers to uplift the Sixers team in overtime. He did attempt 86 field goal attempts over the first 3 games of the season, which is the most in Sixers franchise history. I know that is not the exact type of record that you want to be setting, but this right here is something that I think should be. So looking at the Sixers records here, the most points by a Sixers player in the second half and overtime in the play-by-play era, which is since 1997 to 98, it is Tyrese Maxey with 38, Tyrese Maxey with 38 again, and then Allen Iverson tied with him with 38 points there. Only 3 guys in franchise history to achieve this level of scoring dominance. And to be perfectly honest, guys, if you squint a little bit, this version of Tyrese Maxey looks a little bit like Allen Iverson himself there. And that has been the number one thing that has stood out to me from what we've seen from Tyrese so far this season, is it does feel like there's a bit more fire, a bit more anger, a bit more of this. He's no longer this just fun-loving, excited young kid that is fun to watch play. He's got this competitive intensity that is straight up necessary if he wants to take his talents to the heights that we all know that he can. Now, we've seen what Tyrese Maxey can do on a basketball court. We know that just last season, he was averaging 25.9 points per game, 6.2 assists there, shot 45% from the field, 37.3% from 3. What is particularly cool now is we're seeing him take things head on as the number one option in this Sixers team. Now, obviously, this is in the short term with Joel Embiid and Paul George remaining out, but I do think there's some long-term implications as you do look ahead in the post-Joel Embiid era and think about building the Sixers roster around Tyrese. You're getting an idea of what truly he can turn out to be. Now, to break down exactly what went right in that Pacers game, do want to acknowledge exactly kind of the breakdown of scoring. And let me start by pulling up the box score here. They did ultimately win 118 to 114 in overtime. And what is especially impressive to me, it is the way that Tyrese Maxey battled through. That through the first half of the game, really the first 2.5 games of the season, he's been pretty bad. And then he turned things around. He battled through it. That this version of Tyrese Maxey, firing himself up, showing his expression, talking up his teammates, getting fired up, and ultimately turning things around from an actual production standpoint, fires me up watching this. That I was really impressed with the way he was able to turn that game on its head. And to go back to kind of the quarter breakdown here, that we do know that starting in the third quarter, that Tyrese Maxey scored 14 of the team's final 18 points, scored 14 of the 26 points in the fourth quarter, and then 10 of the final 13 points in overtime. He finished with 45 points, and this is the second time that he has scored 38 plus in the second half in overtime. That is not normal right there, that kind of stuff from Tyrese Maxey. So very excited from what we're seeing there. And there is some help on the horizon, as we do have a little bit of news as far as the outlook here. We did get this from Ramona Shelburne saying that I think Joel Embiid and Paul George are on their way back. The impressions I have, we'll get another update on both their statuses tomorrow, but I think they're both pretty close to coming back. So while this is great news from kind of the overall future of the Sixers team, obviously they're not going to reach the heights as true contenders until those two are back. And for what it's worth, Sixers still sitting at 1-2 right now, so it's not like we should be fully running victory laps despite how good the level of play Tyrese Maxey has been, particularly in that second half there. And really, for me, that is the number one takeaway, that I just need to see that version of Tyrese, that for this plan to work, this load management plan with the 2 stars that obviously are still remaining out and hopefully on the return, you got to be able to count on Tyrese Maxey to be able to take care of business against the lesser teams. And I was incredibly frustrated by the loss at the hands of the Raptors that should have been taking care of business on Saturday. Tyrese was unable to ultimately uplift the team, and honestly, this was more of a team thing that I thought it was sloppy throughout, but they did get the job done against a little bit better of an Indiana Pacers team here. Now, I do want to talk a couple of takeaways from some other guys here that we are seeing. Let me run down the box score a little bit. Start with Caleb Martin. He finished with 17 points, 12 rebounds, which is a great number there. Also a steal and an assist, shot 6 of 16 from the field. We see what Caleb Martin can bring to this Sixers team. I'm not going to lie and act like I've been overly impressed with him so far. We knew who he is. We've seen him hit some big shots and big moments for this Heat team. I do think he's bringing a little bit of Heat culture to this Sixers team to an extent here. But he also made one of the dumber mistakes that I've seen by fouling when the Sixers were up to late in that overtime period. Gave Tyrese Halliburton a chance at the free throw line. Luckily, Tyrese Halliburton ultimately bricked the first free throw and still gave the Sixers the inside track to win. But that was one of the more head-scratching moments from a guy that right before it happened, I was just crowning one of the more intelligent basketball players that I've seen play. So that kind of stuff can't happen by Martin again. But shout out to him, and hopefully, was not obviously the end of the world and they got the job done. So hopefully we can just look back and laugh on that one. Andre Drummond, I would say throughout the 3-game sample size has been a little bit underwhelming thus far, but he was awesome in this Pacers game here. Played 37 minutes, finished with 9 points, 17 rebounds, which is exactly what you hope to see from him. And the biggest thing that I want to highlight is the 2 steals there. Not just 2 steals, but like game-winning steals here. Ultimately, just picking the pockets, moving his feet on the perimeter in a way that I kind of doubted was possible from Andre there. So shout out to him. Ultimately, the game-clinching or the go-ahead steal to create, a lane down the other end here. Some big moments for Andre that obviously trusted by Nick Nurse, delivered there, so shout out to him. Kyle Lowry's been very good. I've been liking his minutes. He's still got some energy to him. Been impressed so far. He played just 17 minutes in this game, finished with 6 points, had 2 assists, shot 2 of 3 from beyond the arc. The 3-point shot is falling for him, so shout out to Kyle. Still looks to have something in the tank here. I don't want to see him playing a ton of minutes really throughout the entirety of the season. I still think there is a chance this is a guy that makes the playoff rotation. Very clear that Nick Nurse trusts him quite a bit, and I think it is very useful to have a little bit of that coach on the floor type feel to him. So shout out to Kyle for sticking around and hanging in there. We've talked plenty about Tyrese Maxey already. Kelly Oubre, in his 38 minutes of action against the Pacers, produced 14 points, had 8 rebounds. 0 of 4 from 3 and just 6 of 18 from the field. I would say this has been Kelly's worst game out of the 3 so far, but I thought he was very good in both the Raptors game and the debut against the Bucks. The rim pressure that he provides when just attacking the basket opens up a lot for the Sixers team. I'm still very happy that Kelly Oubre is back with the organization. I do think that his role is going to continue to be pretty notable. We'll look past that matchup there. Gershon Yabusele, the guy that I've considered the biggest X factor for this entire season, looks to be exactly that. Now, while he was 0 for 4 from the field in his 17 minutes of action, no points overall, his impact was felt very greatly. And the biggest thing that jumped out to me, it is those 6 rebounds there, with 5 of them coming on the offensive end, and 3 key ones that immediately turned into 3-point makes for this Sixers team. He's a guy that's ready to get in there, do the dirty work, and I love what Yabusele brings to the Sixers team there. So shout out to him to start to carve out his carve out his niche and his role with the Sixers team. I still want to see a little bit more of him in the power forward spot rather than at center, which is where he's primarily been used to this point. We'll see how that shapes out over time, and I do think it's more possible or more likely to happen once Joel Embiid is back in this roster here. KJ Martin has quietly been very good to start this season. In 22 minutes of action against the Pacers, shot 3 of 3 from the field, had 8 points there, 3 rebounds, had an assist and a steal. He's a really smart player as far as making the right decision, being a ball mover within the offense. There is some legitimate chemistry between KJ Martin and Tyrese Maxey. That was kind of one of the whispers going around training camp, is this is kind of a duo that's forming there, guys that get along off the court, and it seems like that chemistry is translating there. That's something that I'm excited about and would like to see moving forward, so keep your eye on that. And I'll also highlight Eric Gordon with his best performance in a Sixers uniform thus far. He knocked down 2 of 7 3-pointers, 5 of 10 from the field, finished with 15 points there. Just a veteran shooter, and a guy that is currently leading the team in plus-minus on the season. For me, I think Gordon makes a ton of sense once Joel Embiid is back. Haven't loved the look of him overall in the 3-game sample size thus far, but I do think the Pacers game was a huge step in the right direction, and that willingness as a shooter will show face at some point in this season. And lastly, Jared McCain played 17 minutes, which is a nice showing for him there. He had 4 points, thought he rebounded the ball well, only 2 and 1 assist on the stat sheet. I thought he was active. I didn't love the lineup that he was used with. There was even a 3-guard lineup where I believe it was Maxey, Kyle Lowry, and Jared McCain all sharing the floor together. That's going to struggle, and I don't love that look there. That's really the biggest critique that I think is fair with McCain, is when speaking about that, he is another small guard that you just added to the roster. I still love his skill set, and I think there will be kind of a role for him. To be perfectly honest, through the first 2 games, I would have unleashed him a little more, because at least we know that he is going to be a guy that will get up shots, will run a little bit of offense, and I've liked what I've seen so far. So still keeping the footnote open on Jared McCain there. We'll see how things turn into. But ultimately, I do want to highlight once again just Tyrese Maxey and how he has been the lifeblood of this franchise. That I do think both in the short term as they survive the Joel Embiid and Paul George absence right now, and in the long term for factoring what this franchise can become, it all revolves around Tyrese Maxey, and we're only getting started here. So for Tyrese, let's keep this angry version going. Let's let you wear your emotions on your sleeve in a way that we really have not seen from him. The only other example of this I can think about is in that Knicks series after he hit that big shot, that big three-pointer of him pounding his chest, walking down the floor. That's the Tyrese that I want to see. That's the guy that showed up yesterday and is really fully responsible for carrying that team to the victory. Once again, 38 out of his 45 points coming in the second half and overtime. Let's keep things going. The franchise is here to stay. And to kind of put out his full breakdown from the season overall, do just want to show this here. 31.3 minutes per game or points per game, which is 5th in the league there. 3.7 assists, 4.0 rebounds, 1.0 steal. The shooting splits do have to improve, and his usage rate is going to go far down once Paul George and Joel Embiid are here. But overall, this is a part of his growing process, him figuring out if he can be a number one option. He's still got areas to develop as far as getting foul calls, because that still is not coming his way. Would like to see him a little bit more involved as a playmaker, as has been the case. But overall, through 3 games, pretty satisfied with what we've seen from Tyrese Maxey. And I think that Game 3 performance, particularly that second half, is exactly what we were all hoping for to this point. So let's keep things going. They're going to be back in action against the Pistons on Wednesday, hopefully with Paul George and Joel Embiid. But I will have an update based on whatever is said at practice for you guys tomorrow. So the best way to make sure you're getting tapped into that is by smashing the subscribe button on the channel. Drop a like on this video and any comments you have below. Do want to hear from you guys in the comments. What are your biggest takeaways through the first 3 games? For me, once again, the story is the version of Tyrese Maxey we're seeing and what this means for the Sixers and the short and the long term. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Any other thoughts you have. I'm going to talk to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.